They're going out to your house, making sure you built the house according to plan, and then he signs it off. So there's that fee associated with your project. And then finally, rents. And rents are a payment, as you all know, that's made in exchange for the right to use property. And in the course of this discussion, the city has a responsibility to charge fair market rates in exchange for the private use of public titles. And I think that's an important concept that I just want to take a moment to emphasize. We have a responsibility to charge fair market rents for the private use of public land. So there's different uses within the harbor, as we all know. There's mooring permits, there's piers, docks, yacht clubs, all these different types of uses. And because we are the trustee of these lands, we are expected to charge fair market value for those uses. So here's a map of Newport Harbor, and I'm quite confident everybody here is familiar with every part of Newport Harbor. There's not going to be a quiz at the end of this. The reason why I'm showing this is I just want to highlight how big and how vast our harbor is. And there are a lot of different uses and infrastructure within the harbor. And we as a city are responsible for managing this beautiful resource. And I'll say this 100 times throughout this tonight. We're responsible for managing this beautiful resource in a way that's compliant with the state constitution, the public trust doctrine, and the renting statute. And some of the rents that you use, and I know this will always be a question as to, okay, well, where do the rents go? What happens to that money? So the rent monies that you pay for using public lands goes into a fund called the Tidelands Fund. And the Tidelands Fund is used to support harbor operations, harbor maintenance projects, and capital improvement projects. Now, for all you boaters out there, you have seen some of the capital improvement projects going on in the harbor right now. So dredging, right? You've seen the big barges tearing up all of our mooring fields as it digs through. Very expensive, but it's going to make the harbor an amazing place, right? There's dredging that goes around the public dock so that you can get in and out on low tide. How many of you have been stuck on low tide on a public dock, right? It's the worst. And so those are some of the capital improvement projects that the rents are used to cover. We also have expanded recently the public docks. Some of them were in really bad shape, as you know. Probably my favorite contribution or change was to the 19th Street public dock. How many of you use that on a regular basis? So much more room now, right? After the expansion, it's easier to use. And so that is where some of the monies that we collect for rents, that's what that goes into, is cover those costs. Repairs of the pump out stations and all the different harbor amenities throughout the harbor, that is what it covers. All right. So I know the next question is what to expect from this. What is going to happen? So I think we have to be straightforward with each other and set expectations. And so I think one of the things we need to recognize is that there is going to be some change. There has to be change. The city is required to comply with state law, and we have been told that we have to charge fair market rents for private use of the tidelands. And we have to comply with that. And then that's a key part of this process. Number two, what you want to expect is that we are going to be looking to you to help us navigate this process. And I want to make sure that when you leave this room tonight, if you remember nothing else, I want you to remember that we are looking to you for help in navigating this very difficult process. We know we have to make changes to how we manage the harbor. You've seen the report from the State Lands Commission. And so we are looking for your input. We want your feedback, and we need your feedback as we work through this process together. Our commitment to you is to make sure that this process will be open and transparent. We want to hear from you. We need to hear from you. Tonight is just the first of many public engagement opportunities. So tonight, there's not going to be any votes. I don't know if anybody was worried and thought we were going to have a Harbor Commission, a City Council vote. That's not going to happen tonight. It's all about information and starting the conversation about how the city manages its harbor based on the recommendations provided by the State Lands Commission. Our goal at the end of this project is to have a policy package that we will be sending over to the State Lands Commission for their review and sign off, and eventually the City Council. One that encourages access to the harbor, one that was a fully transparent process, but ultimately any changes will be done in a fair and equitable manner. And that's important to all of us. And our goal here tonight is to make sure that we work collaboratively, with all of you. We need your feedback, we need your thoughts, and that's kind of where we want to go, and tonight is just the start of that conversation. Okay, so the next part of this meeting, I'm going to hand over to the staff from the State Lands Commission, and we have Jeffrey, and man, I'm going to mispronounce your last name. Nick? There we go. We got it right. Outstanding. He's a management land specialist for the State Lands Commission. And then Dr. Matthew, okay, I was off. Sorry about that. He's the executive officer to the State Lands Commission. They're just going to provide some commentary and, about the State Lands Commission, provide some insights about the 2025 report from the State Lands Commission. And then after that, we'll bring it back here and we'll go from there. As a reminder, if you have not read the report, it is online. It's on the city's website. You can actually review it. And it's easily accessible. We'll have some links to it at the back when we have it right here. With that, gentlemen, I will turn it over to you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Matt Dunlau, the other Matt for tonight, the Executive Officer for State Lands Commission. I just want to first just thank everyone for coming out. I've had the pleasure over the last 6 months or so as I've been in this position to meet with quite a few of you guys virtually and in person at times as well. And so I just really appreciate your engagement throughout this process and your comments and questions tonight. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff in a minute, but just wanted to emphasize that the commission is really here to work with the city to try to address the issues that we raised in the staff report and our report that Matt mentioned. And so we are looking to help, to be constructive partners in figuring out how to address those issues. But at the center of all that will be feedback from all of you. So thank you very much for your engagement today. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff, who is our granted lands expert, to go into more detail about what our report says and kind of lay the groundwork for the next portion of tonight's activity. So turn it over to Jeff.
Thanks, Matt and Matt. So good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Plobnick, as Matt and Matt said. I manage the California State Lands Commission's Granted Lands Program, which encompasses the tide and submerged lands in Newport Bay. Obviously, I'm joined today by our Executive Officer, Dr. Matt Dunlau. I'm very honored to have him here today. And I would also like to start by thanking everyone for being here this evening, for taking the time to participate in this process, and for caring about Newport Bay and the management of it. I'd also like to thank city staff for inviting us to this evening's meeting and for working diligently to address management concerns in the bay. So to provide some background, the California State Lands Commission was established by the legislature in 1938 and manages over 4 million acres of public lands. These lands are often referred to as sovereign lands or public trust lands, and include tide and submerged lands and the beds of navigable waterways in the state's borders. California acquired all right, title, and interest in these lands when it became a state in 1850, and these lands have special restrictions on their use and management as established by the California Constitution, state statutes, and the Commonwealth Public Trust Doctrine. Over time, the legislature has enacted over 300 statutes which have granted areas of these public trust lands to local public entities. These entities are referred to as grantees or trustees. These grantees hold their granted lands in trust and manage these lands for the benefit of all the people of California. So as an example, the pins you see on the map here represent the approximate location of all of the state's grantees of public trust lands. These granted lands are managed locally, with the state retaining oversight authority for these lands through the State Lands Commission. In exercising this oversight authority, the Commission represents the statewide public interest and works to ensure that grantees manage their granted lands in conformance with the California Constitution, the public trust doctrine, the provisions of the pertinent granting statutes, and the grantee's fiduciary duties to the state. The state sovereign lands in Newport Bay were originally granted to the city of Newport Beach in 1919. This grant was amended several times before being repealed and replaced in 1978 by the operative grant, Chapter 74, Statutes of 1978. The operative grant has been modified or amended multiple times since then. As with all grantees, the city is responsible for managing its legislatively granted lands within the guidelines of the public trust doctrine, the California Constitution, its granting statutes, and its fiduciary duties as a trustee of state lands. In turn, the State Lands Commission exercises oversight authority for these lands and ensures that the grantee manages these lands within the framework of the public trust doctrine, the California Constitution, the grant statutes, and the grantee's fiduciary duties. And although the Commission does exercise oversight authority over these granted lands, the Commission is not authorized to impose its own discretionary decisions on the city. So as Matt mentioned, and as most of you likely know, last year, Commission staff released a report on the City of Newport Beach's public trust lands management. This report was transmitted to the city following Commission direction at its December 16, 2025 meeting. The report was the result of more than a year's worth of review and analysis by Commission staff on topics related to the city's mooring buoy permit and recreational pier permit programs. The report included several findings and recommendations for both the mooring buoy permits and the recreational pier permit programs, as well as additional findings and recommendations regarding the city's overall management of its granted lands. So for the city's mooring permit program, the report concluded that the city's December 2023 appraisal for updating mooring permit rates does not violate generally accepted appraisal principles or methodologies, and relying on it does not violate the city's grant or any other part of California law. That the city could potentially implement programs to address mooring affordability, and that Commission staff would be happy to help the city navigate the legal issues involved with an affordability program. And finally, that the private sale of mooring permits under the city's transfer policy appears to violate the city's granting statute, its fiduciary obligations to the state, and the public trust doctrine. For the city's residential pier permit program, the report concluded that residential pier rates appear to be significantly below market value, that the city's rental area calculations for residential piers do not reflect the true extent of private use of public tidelands, and that the existing residential pier subleasing policies need to be reevaluated to ensure that the city's tidelands fund is being appropriately compensated for subleasing profits. And finally, the report concluded that the city's overall management of its granted lands have included clear differences in rate revisions between mooring permits and residential pier permits, and that moving forward, the city should follow consistent valuation methods and rate revision schedules for both types of uses. That the city should review the action it adopted on July 9th, 2024 to ensure that this action provides a fair solution to the concerns identified in the report. And that overall, the city has historically not provided adequate explanation about how its granted lands management decisions comply with its obligations as a trustee of state public lands. So as I mentioned, the Commission staff's report was sent to the city following Commission direction last December. Since that time, the city has begun the process of addressing the concerns raised in the report, a process that this meeting is a part of. Moving forward, Commission staff will work closely with the city and provide consultation regarding potential solutions to address granted lands management issues. To be clear though, the Commission's role in this process is predominantly advisory. The city has discretionary authority over its granted lands, and it is not the Commission's role to mandate specific management practices or programs, but only to ensure that the city's management is consistent with the guidelines of the Constitution, the public trust doctrine, its granting statutes, and its fiduciary duties. We will remain available to answer questions later, but for the moment, I will pass it back over to Matt.
Excuse me, could you go back one slide, I think it is?
Sure, give me just a second.
I want to be able to read through.
Take your time. And just so everybody knows, we will be putting this entire PowerPoint up on the city's website. So if you missed it, you couldn't get a picture, especially those who use Android phones, doesn't quite get that far, right? Gotcha, sorry. It'll be up on the city's website, okay? Okay.
Could you go back one more?
One more for you, sir.
Because it seems to be some different wording maybe in the survey. I was trying to correlate that. And then I guess one more.
We'll go back one more, give you an opportunity. It's totally fine.
He was going pretty fast.
It's okay.
Are you saying that this is already posted on the city site, or it's
Is it posted already? No, it'll be posted tomorrow or Friday at the latest.
going to be exactly like
No changes. No changes at all.
Okay, good.
There you go. Like that. Yes. Open and transparent process. That's why we'll keep it as is.
Okay, I think that's it.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So two things I wanted to reinforce from Jeff's brief presentation that I think that is important is that the State Lands Commission provides oversight, and I think that is probably a clear message so far. If you haven't caught that, they provide the overarching oversight to make sure that how the city manages is compliant with all the governing documents. However, the city retains the authority to shape its management practices and programs. And that's really critical that we have local authority to manage our harbor, because we know our harbor better than anybody else. And as long as we manage it in a way that is consistent with those government documents, that is what the State Lands Commission wants to see. Is that a fair statement? Excellent. Number two is that as we work through responding to the recommendations that are made in the State Land Commission's report, we're not going to do it in a solo. It's not going to just be just us. We are going to ensure that there are multiple public meetings. It's going to be a very comprehensive approach as recommended by the State Lands Commission. And then before we even send it to our City Council for consideration, we're going to send it over to the State Lands Commission to get their sign off, because we want to make sure that whatever we as a community believe is appropriate for our harbor, that it is consistent and compliant. Again, I know you've heard it probably way too many times tonight, with the state constitution, the public trust doctrine. Look at that, see, you've got it memorized, and the granting statute. So that is kind of the vision of how this will look. And, you know, on a personal note, I understand that there is some concern, right? As there's likelihood that as we charge fair market rents, that there could be an increase. And I completely understand that. I come from a very, very poor family. My dad was a single income dad, single income now, you know, retirement income. And so when you add the impact of raising rates anywhere, it's a concern. And so I want all of you to know that I empathize with you, and I hear you, and the city hears you, and we understand your concerns. But at the same time, we do have a responsibility to make sure that we have to charge fair market rents. And that's a requirement of the state constitution. All right, so next steps, let's talk about scheduling wise. This is kind of the timeline that we are looking at. So again, the State Lands Commission asked for us to start working on this and provide an update within 6 months. We are here tonight to kick off that process. And again, tonight's just the kickoff. It's an informational meeting, hear from you, hear from us, kind of start the conversation. We have to send a letter, so we're going to be right here about in June. Actually, I skipped one, I'm sorry. We have commissioned new and independent appraisals for rental rates, and those are included the residential piers, the moorings, and yacht clubs. We're getting appraisals as we speak. Next month, which is like, well, literally 5 or 6 days away, time flies, we will be sending a progress report to the State Lands Commission, just kind of summarizing what we've done so far and what our approach will be. And then next step. So the big and probably what you are all looking for is the public meetings and the public process. So what will happen is there are new harbor commissions coming on board 1st of July. And obviously there will be a new chair, so we wanted to kind of get them situated. And then we anticipate having public hearings related to this matter in August. And what it will look like is, because we're doing a comprehensive approach, we are going to analyze and review each harbor user. So think of like the mooring permits, the residential docks, and the yacht clubs. And each user group will have 3 hearings. So there will be plenty of opportunity at a public forum to add comment, but as well as through the surveys and just reaching out to myself and your harbor commission to provide feedback. So there will each user group will get an introductory study session where the issue will be presented to the harbor commission. Then there will be a stakeholder meeting subsequently to that. And then finally, we will bring it back, that one issue, to the harbor commission for their final consideration and recommendation. Again, nothing will be adopted, no changes will be made until we send a complete and comprehensive